Hello, my name is Joe DeMio from Southern California, and I am a professional James Bond addict. And I am standing here at the Holy Grail of places in Miami, Florida, at the Dezerland 007 James Bond collection of not only automobiles and transportation things, but artifacts. This is heaven for 007 people, and I've met you all over the world, so I know that you exist. And even if you're just a movie buff, this is the place to see. And what you have here at the 007 collection in Miami is the largest collection of authentic James Bond automobiles anywhere in the world. This collection lived in England, in the Lake District of Keswick, England, up until about 6-7 years ago, when the Deezer Car Collection purchased it, and now it resides here, which is wonderful. And they have cars that represent pretty much every James Bond movie from the early 60s of Sean Connery up now till the Daniel Craig 007 outings. It's really fascinating, and not only are there cars here that are authentic, but there are many James Bond artifacts. It is an amazing collection. There is no official, by the movie production people, James Bond museum. This is the closest you're going to get in the world, and I've traveled the world to many Bond sites, and this is like Mecca, especially with the artifacts. Probably the car that's most associated with James Bond throughout the years is the Aston Martin DB5, and that's with this car here. There was a few models made for the James Bond movies. It started out in Goldfinger, also was used in Thunderball. I believe this was used in the GoldenEye movie. It comes equipped with pull-out bumpers. It comes equipped with an ejector seat. It comes equipped with front mount and rear mount machine guns. This over here is the Aston Martin DBS that was used in on Her Majesty's Secret Service, George Lazenby's only outing as 007, and it comes complete with, if you look closely on the windshield, the bullet hole that unfortunately killed his just married wife on there. That is also a special car. It's in a special color that was made specifically for the movie. It's a type of green, and they filmed those particular scenes in Portugal. We also have the Mach 1 Mustang, as I can see from over here, that was used in Diamonds Are Forever. This was also driven by Bond, and that car scene actually took place in Las Vegas. And true Bond aficionados will know that that had a very specific scene where it goes through one way and it comes out another. One of the most famous Bond bloopers in the entire series, but that was a Mach 1 Mustang. Next to that is a TVR, is what you used. That was also used in Diamonds Are Forever, but when he was in the scene, when he was in Amsterdam. And that's a special convertible model also made for that particular movie right there. I could see an AMC Hornet, which was used in The Man with the Golden Gun. That was driven by the bad guy, Scaramanga. There's another AMC model. Unfortunately, AMC was that's the cars they used in that particular model year. It was the 70s, so AMC, which is no longer around anymore. Then there's another model that was also driven by Roger Moore and Sheriff J.W. Pepper, also in that. That's in the scene where in the red car there, where they blew out of the showroom and the glass and everything. Next to that is a Citroen that was used in For Your Eyes Only. Also, Roger Moore's James Bond, the famous line, "I think we're being out-horsepowered." I think that car has about a 50 horsepower engine in it here. Directly in front of me is the white Lotus Esprit. That was from The Spy Who Loved Me. That has the famous distinction of going underwater. That car all kind of zipped up and actually drove underwater, and there are many different shells that were used for that. It's a fascinating story about how that got that car to work there. And actually the famous scene is there where Roger Moore drives it out into the beach, he rolls the window down and he hands somebody a fish. So that's just the Roger Moore thing. A great car that they used on many different stages. They had different shells of the car, but it actually was used as a submersible at one point. But that's another famous car. So in the 1965 James Bond movie Thunderball, they used the infamous jetpack as a way for actually James Bond to escape into the DB5. Now the jetpack was interesting. It had never been seen before on camera, and the producers of the movie saw it on a television show, got the guys from Bell Extron in the US to fly over with one of those. It could only run for about 15 seconds before it ran out of juice. And the famous story with that is that they wanted Sean Connery to put it on without a helmet. and the guy who actually flew it said, no, I absolutely have to use a helmet. So in the movie, you see Sean Connery putting a helmet on. They didn't want him to do it, but the guy flew it. So it's real, it actually worked, and they filmed it a couple times, and that's the famous jetpack scene. Behind me is the Lockheed Jetstar, which was Goldfinger's escape plane that he flew from Switzerland to Kentucky to go visit his the Fort Knox scene in there. So that's what this plane is here. And funny thing is, it was used in two scenes as two different planes. One as Auric Goldfinger's plane, and the other one is the plane that takes James Bond to the White House for lunch. So what they did was they painted it one side, one thing, and another scheme on the other side. So that was that. It was also used as a model where it crashed, obviously, at the very end. Going back to some of the cars, we have the BMW Z8, which was used in The World Is Not Enough from James Bond, another convertible model of that car, very special car there. Also in the movie, it ends up being cut in half by the bad guy there. We also have some of the newer Aston Martin cars that are here from some of the Daniel Craig movies, some of the DB9s, and some of the Volantes, beautiful, and all of the Aston Martins, it's crucial to note, are painted in the silver birch color as the original DB5. So all the Aston Martins you see in any of the James Bond movie, that's the James Bond color. So you're never gonna go away from that. I also see there's another Lotus here, which was also used in For Your Eyes Only. It's a copper color. He used it in one of the skiing scenes. It didn't have any special scenarios, but it's another Lotus Esprit that's being used there. So in GoldenEye, which was Pierce Brosnan's first James Bond movie, there's a scene in Russia, of course it wasn't actually shot in Russia, where he hijacks a tank and takes it for basically a joyride after the bad guy. So the tank is here. My brother, who actually drives tanks as a docent in a military museum, could tell you what model that was. I don't know what model it is. There's also Little Nellie. Now this also has the distinction of being in the 1967 James Bond movie, Little Nellie. Now there's another fascinating James Bond. James Bond actually did drive this, ride this, fly it. Getting back to 1965, Thunderball took place a lot underwater. So they invented all of these submarines, if you would. So we have one of those here as well. Again, these were custom designed actually by an outfit in Miami because they were filming in the Bahamas for these personal submersibles. So you'll see one of those here as well. Besides the automobile collection and the transportation collection, if you will, the artifacts here are second to none. There is nowhere else in the world where you can see all of the Bond mania artifacts, from Corgi dolls and Corgi toys, all the way up to dolls and posters and books. You know, when the Bond thing took off after Goldfinger, it just spawned a whole industry of toys, aftershave lotion, and it's all here, and it's all in beautiful, pristine collection. Again, you're not going to see anything like this anywhere else in the world. I doubt if the Bond producers, Eon Production, has half of this stuff in their collection, because it is amazing. So even without the automobiles, this is worth seeing, and you could spend hours, because there's thousands of artifacts, thousands of toys, thousands of stuff in there, and it's just fantastic. Besides the automobiles, besides the artifacts, there's costumes here, there's posters, there's actual props, obviously used in the movie. Again, there's nowhere else in the world that you're going to find this stuff. Little bits here and there. Actually, in London, they have a handful of the more recent cars, but they don't have any of these. You know, back in the day, after the movie was over, the stuff was sold off, people bought it. Nobody really considered it valuable. But now, as memorabilia comes back in, this stuff is priceless and one of a kind. One of the bad guys in Thunderball, the 1965 James Bond movie, is a bad girl, and a beautiful redhead. I actually met her at a Bond convention once, and she drove this motorcycle with rockets on it to try and get the Aston Martin DB5. Unfortunately, she comes to her demise, but not without a thrilling scene on the motorcycle. So just to wrap up, for the 007 aficionado, this is Mecca. This is where you need to come. It's only a half an hour from Miami International Airport or Fort Lauderdale Airport. Come on down and plan on spending at least half your day. There's plenty of time to walk around these, to take a good close-up look. A lot of museums, you can't get close to things. You can get right up front to these cars and these automobiles and all the artifacts, and it's truly worth your time. Admission is very reasonable, so come on in, and it's Dezerland Park.com. Dezerlandpark.com online for more information. But again, no visit to Miami. And even if you're just a movie buff, this is something you're not going to see anywhere else in the world. Well worth your time. Come on down. We could talk about the car that's right behind me here. This is a Toyota 2000 GT that was made in 1966. This is from the James Bond movie You Only Live Twice with Sean Connery. Two things to notice to talk about that particular movie. It is the only James Bond movie, You Only Live Twice, where James Bond does not actually drive a car. He's driven in this car. Sean Connery, being 6'2" tall, had a special convertible model of this made of which you see behind me, because the regular hardtop, he would hit his head on it. So they actually made a convertible version, two versions of two models of that convertible. This is one of them. The other one actually resides in the Toyota headquarters in Tokyo, Japan. So just to be able to view this car that's behind us right now, as you can see, it sort of took its model from the Jaguar E-Type. They only made it for 2 years, less than 1,000 were made, and it's very rare to see this car. And this is a right-hand drive model as well, which they only mainly produced right-hand drive models. So this is a very special car. The two cars that they actually made for Goldfinger, one of them was stolen in the mid-'80s, never to be seen again. The other one resides in a private museum, which I've actually seen as well. A Pierce Brosnan outing, one of his later ones was the speedboat ride on the Thames River, which they had to close down to actually do this, and it goes in and out, and it ends up at the Millennium Dome, where he jumps on that, and that gets crazy. But that's a wonderful, it actually goes down and then comes back up. It's a pretty hairy Thames ride. It's not the first time the Thames has been used in a Bond movie, but it's probably the fastest thing that ever got on it. In Pierce Brosnan's last outing, Die Another Day, the pre-title sequence has a hovercraft sequence. They're supposed to be in North Korea, and he hijacks a hovercraft and takes off with the bad guys. And then, unlike James Bond, he actually gets caught at the end of the pre-title sequence and goes to North Korean prison. No spoiler alerts, so go watch the movie. But that hovercraft is here, and those are fun toys. In one of the more recent James Bond movies, Skyfall, was the Jeep, and they have the Jeep that actually he gets rescued by Moneypenny in the pre-title sequence, and she takes him for a quick ride, and she gets a little too close and blows off both mirrors, side mirrors, and the famous quip is, you weren't using those. So then he gets out and starts firing at the bad guy, jumps on a motorcycle, and then starts to jump on some Moroccan rooftops. But that Jeep is here, and it's all beat up as it ended up in the movie.